Welcome to the Driving the World podcast series. I'm your host, Cully Holland. Today we have Adam Miles, our corporate mechanical engineer, and we're going to be talking about the K7 versus the K9 and the S7 versus the S7P. Hey Adam, how's it going?
Pretty good, Cully. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us again. So we're going to be talking about our K7 versus the K9 gearboxes, as well as our S7 versus the S7P gearboxes. So maybe for some of our first-time listeners or folks not too familiar with SEW-EURODRIVE, why don't we just start off at the very beginning and define what we mean by a K-box and what we mean by an S-box.
Yeah, no problem. So our K-boxes are right-angle gear offering with helical bevel gearing, typically. And then S-box is a worm-style gearing, so a little bit different internal gearing, but still a right-angle gearbox at the end of the day.
And when we're just talking these two differences, one of the main things that folks think of is when you have a K-box, it's going to be a very high efficiency, and worm boxes, depending on the ratio, will get down into the lower efficiencies, but have a few other benefits to the style of gearing. But we'll start off with the Ks, and we had our K7s versus our K9s. So our K7s is our 7 Series gearbox, and it's been out for, you'd say, about how long?
I think somewhere in the 90s they were launched. Pretty mature product line for us.
And now we have the new K9 series, while the 7 is still running, doing strong. So what is the difference between the K7 and the K9, and maybe some of the reasons that it existed?
Yeah, definitely. So the biggest difference between the K7 and the K9 is going to be your right angle gear stage. So when I talk about right angle gearing, I like to think about a clock. So if your wheel is a clock, your pinion for our K7 is coming in right about 3 o'clock. Something like a worm gearing is coming over the top at noon, 12 o'clock. So you get a lot of sliding action as it pushes those teeth over. And the K9, which is a hypoid style gearing, comes in about 2 o'clock. So really close to the K7, a little bit higher up the wheel. So you get a little bit more sliding action, but still really high efficiency.
Gotcha. And so we have our hypoid gearing, and we have the K19, K29, K39, K49. Where do they fit in the portfolio when we're discussing right angle gearboxes?
Yeah, so the K9 series really slots in between the K7 housings. So from a housing size and output torque range, it really just makes those steps as we go up the ladder, and K sizes a little bit smaller. Our K19 and 29s are aluminum housings, so they're going to be a pretty light product if that's a concern, a lighter gearbox. 39 and 49 get into the cast iron housings as we get into the higher torques.
So they're kind of acting like gap fillers, giving our customers a few more options when they need a specific torque range, or maybe on the smaller side with the K19s, they need a little less torque, but they're looking for the advantages of a K-box with that efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. It's just another option to slot in between, really to kind of make sure we have the perfect solution for what you need.
Is there anything else we kind of want to know about the K9 series before we move on to the S7 and S7P?
One thing that might be worth mentioning is with that hypoid gearing and a little bit more sliding action, certain ratios, certain speeds can be a little bit quieter. So if you have an application where sound is a concern, it's something to look into as well.
That is definitely a hot topic right now in the industry, so I'm sure some people will think about that. And now we're going to move towards the S7 and the S7P. And the first thing I realize is we didn't put a 9 on the S series. So what's the difference between these product lines? Why did the S series get a P instead of an S9?
Yeah, definitely. So with the K7 to the K9, we changed gearing types. It's really a completely different gearbox. With the S7 to the S7P, it's really just a combination of options and features within that same line. So it's still an S series gearbox. It's still our 7 series, same gearings, same housings. But we've found with those certain combinations and sizes that we can offer a little bit higher torque. One of the big ones being a really high quality polyglycol oil, which helps us squeeze what we can out of that gearing. So again, it's an evolution. It's the same housing, so we kept the same nomenclature, added the P to the end to denote that.
Gotcha. So it really is just kind of an improvement or an additional option to the worm gearboxes, the S series, where if you reach out to whoever you reach out to at SEW-EURODRIVE, and it's possible they can squeeze a little more torque out of it. And where would that come into play? And out in the field, since it is still the same housing, the same gearing, why would this P ever be an interest to our customers?
Yeah, so depending on ratios and sizes, we're looking between a 10 and 30% torque increase. So where it really come into play is if you're just outgrowing a housing size, your application needs just a little bit more, but you really don't need to make that jump to a K7 or the next worm housing size. So that S7P, again, just gives you a smaller step as you work up the ladder to really help find the right size for the application. So there's going to be instances where you might be able to stay in a smaller case size for packaging or whatever other reasons.
Well, fantastic. So it really sounds, even though there are two different styles of right angle gearboxes, the K9 and the S7P are really just offering our customers a few more options and a little more flexibility within the gearing that already existed. Fantastic. Is there anything else we need to know, or is that a good 10,000-foot view of the K9 and the S7P?
Yeah, I think that covers the basics. And as always, as you mentioned, please reach out to your regional engineering teams, your district sales engineers. We can get you all the details you need and help find the right thing for your application.
Always happy to help customers. And Adam, once again, really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.